Spying is a tool for gang stalking. Around June 20th, 2013, I heard my brother spreading rumors about me in the town I live in. I literally heard him yelling with a few others about a teacher online looking for sex. I went for a walk but could not find him. I had one person that I know call me and ask me if I was online looking for sex, if that was really me. I responded, if I was, do you think I would put a picture of myself sucking a dick on there? My brother had told me to look on a website, and I found the picture. It only showed half of my face, and if it was really me then I had been knocked out, or it was photoshopped, or it was someone that looked like me. I will explain how my brother told me in due time. That particular picture was either a look-alike, or they came in while I was asleep and gassed. That's the kind of shit our national security does. It is 8 months later, and I'm finding the same shit happening once again. The police won't help me, neither will cybersecurity agencies. I have called numerous news outlets, radio stations, programs, and hotlines. There is no help. If I post online, they just trolls wherever I go. National security has secured the system on every level to ensure that they don't get caught and that their victims always lose, no matter what. They are confident in their operation, and that's why they don't kill me. They either need me to destroy myself with their hidden help, or they want people to believe me so they can target more people. Because if you believe me, then their program will become more effective. It seems that they get upset when I post stuff online, so maybe them killing me is too much of a risk, or I have some other role to fulfill for them. Or maybe my original 4 stalkers are doing all this behind the back of national security. I'm not sure exactly what every detail is behind the scenes. I am certain that they put more pictures of me online that trace to my computer, and then they spread rumors. After infecting my MacBook Pro, they accessed my FaceTime software, opened my mail which effectively locked me out for a while, and logged into my iCloud account which I had just made minutes earlier. Plus, I could hear my brother the clown of national security and his Keystone Cop sidekicks perpetrating from freshly installed devices. Or maybe they were in my attic. They come to visit on occasion. I know for sure. I have literally had hundreds of people stalk me wherever I go and spread rumors. They yell from a distance, and many times I have seen strangers engage in conversations with shoppers and they point in my direction. I see them and I hear them. If I am lucky I catch their lips moving when they project their voices in my direction. I am able to recognize dozens of stalkers simply from seeing their presence during times of active stalking harassments, one too many times to be coincidence. I would say I know 12 from random incidents of harassment, besides the many neighbors that play heavily active roles in my gang stalk life in the sick country we call America. Paul, my best friend for 26 years. The first time I had seen my best friend Paul in almost a decade was the day after I kicked my brother out of my life. I am certain that Matt had talked to Paul while Paul was supposedly locked up because I described an app to Paul that Matt had shown me a few months earlier. Paul's reaction gave him away. This app allowed Matt to simply punch in any phone number into his phone and he would receive a copy of all pictures, messages, phone calls and web pages that went through that phone. He could be in China, put your number in the app, and he would get a copy of everything that went through your phone. Matt showed it to me but I had no interest. I told him I wouldn't have any use for that, Matt. I don't want to spy on people. It occurred to me that Matt was using that app on me, but I wasn't too concerned. I trusted my brother, and a nice guy like me couldn't imagine that my own brother would do such a thing to another brother. Well, when I told Paul about this app that Matt had, Paul said, "Oh yay, Matt showed me that." And then I saw it in his face that he had slipped up, and I let it go, knowing full well that Matt had talked to Paul, and it was no coincidence that Paul broke out of jail the very next day after I became aware that Matt really was an NSA agent stalking me. I am 100% sure. But Paul was my best friend, so I acted like I didn't notice, because I'm a nice guy, and I didn't want to lose my lifelong best friend. Paul's mission was to confuse me back into the ghost and spirit realm, and try to convince me away from believing that Matt was an NSA agent. He ended up staying with me a few weeks, and from what I have learned, I know that I have no friends. Thank God for Amber and Jason, the only family I have left, and the only good friends in my life. Paul and I got to my house in the beginning of June 2013. Paul claimed to be helping me in figuring out the solution to my problems. He helped me figure out my problems, That's for sure, because he was one of my problems. Paul had always been trouble. In 1996, I had to fight an armed robbery charge that I beat in a jury trial. It was Paul that got me in that mess. He had me thinking we were good friends, while all along he was intentionally wrecking my life. That's how I see it. Paul was no friend of mine. During his 2-3 weeks at my house in May-June of 2013, he helped a little, asked for too much, and worked at confusing me that spirits or demons or ghosts was possessing my block. I played along with it sometimes, but I knew the whole time about the truth. Paul was removed from jail to come spend time completing the mission he was given by my NSA agent brother, Matt Pope. One night Paul and I heard loud footsteps on the roof, 2 pair of them, stepping hard as they ran above us. We both heard loud footsteps running away from us on the roof. Jennifer, Paul's girlfriend, rushed out of the bedroom door and yelled, "What the fuck was that?" She was scared. We ran out to the yard but never saw them. They were all black, and always ran to or disturbed from the back corner of the house, a place absent of light, void of windows, and far from the door. By the time I can get out there to look around, they have plenty of time to escape over the fence. I know they wear black because one night I saw 2 people in full black outfits that blended into the darkness and almost disappear, and they were walking on the sidewalk late at night a block from my house. I had never seen anyone dressed in all black and almost be invisible the way these 2 people appeared when I saw them. I know they dress in all black. The agents themselves have access to invisibility cloaks. I know they do. Another night after seeing and hearing strange things on my surveillance cameras during the day, I got the call at 1:30 a.m. that sounded like a computer trying to communicate with blips and bleeps. Even though I knew Matt and the NSA was behind it, it still freaked me out. I thought, what if the military really did send a robot to my block, for an experiment or something? If you had experienced my life over the previous 4 months, you would understand why I thought that to be possible. Weird things happened to me. I could sit in bed and hear Paul whispering to Jennifer in their room. "I hate that faggot," Paul would whisper, and then he'd put on and act like he was my friend. I never had many friends, just enemies that fooled me. I was molested and never talked about it to anyone. All I got was gang stalkers that undermined my life. My gang stalkers frustrated me in every facet of life, and my brother and neighbors have spread rumors behind my back since I was 12. It seems that everybody has talked about my molestations behind my back, but never to me as a person. When we got older, my original 4 stalkers had a plan to continue their stalking and rumors that seem to have spread everywhere I go. I know they did this back in the day, and they still do, and on a much larger scale. Our national security agents secretly gang stalk their victims while hiding the truth to the matter. My brother is an NSA agent that has gang stalked me since high school. I should be awarded for my perseverance, strength, and intelligence that let me survive in this world of gang stalking. But instead, rumors from busloads of agents are spread and yelled from a distance, and all people do is talk shit about me behind my back. I will get back to this fact later. Paul was sent to undermine my perceptions. He tried to convince me it was ghosts, spirits, aliens, or demons. I had lived with all of those for 5 years and figured out it was none of those possibilities. I knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that it was my brother, a national security agent. Paul had been sent to try and manipulate and confuse the issue. I knew what he was about, but I played the fool to learn more about what these people are really here for. The final mission before Paul left was to get cops to dislike me. 2 cops in Kerman already did dirty work for the NSA, but they wanted honest cops to hate me, too, and somewhere around June 18, 2013, 12 cops and sheriffs from Madera, Fresno and Kerman came pounding on my door. Paul and Jennifer just got back from Madera, and Paul jumped into the attic to hide once he saw the cops knocking at the door. I quickly stepped outside and shut the door behind me, talking with the cops. The 2 dirty cops were not involved, and I suspect that this little incident was pulled while the honest cops were on duty so as to tarnish my reputation with them. I was born and raised with outlaws, and I don't rat on people I consider my friends. The cops interrogated me. "Mr. Pope, we know Paul Jones is in your house. A probation officer saw him in the passenger side while his girlfriend was driving. We just want to get him and we will be done here." One cop had a machine gun pointing towards my feet and a grenade strapped around his chest. Another had a drug dog on a leash. There were 6 more of them shutting down my block, and 4 were immediately next to or behind the cop that was talking to me. I'm not a good liar, but I have learned that sometimes you have to lie, especially when dealing with police, and stick to your story even when they know you are lying. I responded, "That was me and Jennifer, she's staying with me for a while. I haven't seen Paul in years." He knew I was lying, but I still wasn't letting them in. I should have. Paul is no friend of mine. But I held my ground. I tried to be a man of my word whenever possible, no matter what kind of dirtbag I deal with. The cop was upset. "Look, just go inside and talk to him, and see where that gets us," he said. So I went inside and talked to Paul, who was only facing 2 months on Easy Street, but he wasn't going to budge. He was working on his own little assignment for national security, of this I am certain. I wrestled with the police for 3 fucking hours for that sorry son of a bitch Paul Jones, and the cops finally left very angry at me, after several hours of stress. They never got a warrant, but 2 of them came back the next day to look at my garden in the garage. I let them right in because Paul was no longer around, and they saw 87 cannabis plants when my doctor's limit was 45. They told me they would be back to make sure I was in compliance. I moved 40 of the smallest ones into my backyard, and the cops never came back. I quit growing after that harvest because it was too much work for being a near full-time dad, a high school teacher, and battling the hidden war against national security's mind-control gang-stalking circus of clowns. Running a 6,000-watt operation was just a bit too much for me, so I just quit. I will have to wait until I deal with our military before I start growing again. Paul had failed to convince me it was spirits. I know Matt Pope is the NSA agent behind it all, but Paul did succeed in ruining my good standing with the honest cops in Kerman. Oh well, they aren't shit compared to national security and the military. This war will wage on forever, unless I stop them. I believe I can. The sign came to me around April 2013. I was at Mark Brickwise's pad, the guy that became a cop that stalks me. 3 of the 4 original stalkers were there, and this was before I knew the scope of who these clowns really were. Matt Pope, the NSA spy, was there, and so was Rob Bricky, the military clown. We were playing darts, and the last throw to ever hit the board was mine. The dart had hit the thin metal overlap on the front of the dartboard in such a way that will never be repeated. The dart hit it flat, and fell straight down. The metal thing vibrated so hard that every piece to the dartboard fell apart and crumbled to the ground. It was a nice dartboard, with folding doors and all, but after my throw, the largest piece was no bigger than a square inch. It was the second weirdest thing that I have ever seen in my life. Paul's last visit. Around October 3rd, 2013, Paul and Jennifer show up at my doorstep. I still considered Paul my friend at this time. The stunt he pulled was no different than any other experience I have had with Paul in the past. In 1996, I was facing an armed robbery charge because of him. Looking back, my best friend Paul had always been one of my stalkers. The last visit from Paul ended particularly strange, and he will never be welcome at my home again. The day or next after he showed up, supposedly on the run from Kansas for doing a home invasion, Jennifer comes pounding on the bathroom door while I was in the shower. "The cops are here," she shouted. One thing I have learned is to not be afraid of cops. Just be yourself and don't be afraid. I walked outside wrapped in a towel to see what all the commotion was about. The 2 perpetrating dirty cops were there, and Paul was loading up the van he came in with some house speakers that I said he could have. The police acted like they were there to check on me and make sure I wasn't being robbed. They were really there to harass me. They poked fun at me because I came out in a towel. Paul was in on it too. So I went inside and put some shorts on, and came back out until they left, thanking them falsely for looking out for my well-being. Those speakers are to this day still sitting in my house. What a crock of shit America has turned into, that's what I think. So the 3 of us headed out to UC Davis to see if I could find a graduate student in neuroscience so I could pick their brain and see if they'd be interested in a research project, because I'm crazy like that. We even stopped in Madera at a jail facility, like a halfway house or something like that. Paul got out and the guard opened up the gate and was talking with a few of the residents. I have no idea why we stopped there. For all I know, Paul never went to Kansas and was staying in this place the whole time, waiting on a national security agent to pull him out once in a while when needed. Maybe he was letting some of my future stalkers know what I looked like, for all I know. It was weird. So we headed out to UC Davis and never made it there. During the entire drive, I was trying to load a map on my new iPhone 5, and not one single map would load for 4 hours. Any other web page would load, but not one that contained a map. Once, an image loaded where the map should have been, but it was one of those red circles with a slash through the middle, like you see on those no smoking signs. I swear to God. So we were lost somewhere south of Sacramento, and I talked them into letting me drive because I had to get home and give my daughter a ride to cheer practice. I found Highway 99 and headed south, stopping in Modesto so I could grab a beer to ease my frustrating day. I parked at a liquor store, and just before I got out, Paul says to me, "Dave." And I turned to look at them laying down in the back of the van. Paul sat up and said, "Don't take anyone home with you." I looked at him like he was crazy. "Paul, I'm just getting a fucking beer. How often do I go in to get a beer and end up taking someone home with me?" I thought it was strange that he would tell me something like that when I was just running into the store to get a beer. He said, "I'm just looking out for you. You don't need anyone at your house with you. You need to keep people out because they are trouble. You know what I'm talking about." I agreed, said, "I'm not taking anyone home, Paul, don't worry." I tripped out, because no sooner did I close the van door and turn to walk my first step, a homeless girl was literally rubbing up against me, asking for $1. I immediately summed her up. Half-ass raggedy clothes, an almost too perfect smudge of dirt across her cheek, and a pretty good-looking girl behind it all. She was fake and I knew it within 2 seconds. "Who sent you?" I asked. She replied, "My husband, he's always sending me to get money." I walked past her and headed into the store. She followed me and was mumbling something about something or the other, and I turned around to hand her the 85 cents that was in my pocket and told her to leave me alone. I went in, grabbed 2 40-ounce beers and a Mountain Dew, and came back outside to find that Paul had left in the van. He set me up again, in a way that revealed who Paul really was, a fake friend. I am a little slow, but when I get there, I know I'm there. And there was this fake homeless girl saying, "Your friend left you," and I left her, setting my bag of drinks on the ground and walking away fast. "Leave me alone," is all I said. I walked away realizing I had left my new phone in the driver's seat in the van. I walked down the street and was able to find a person that let me use their phone. My mom came and picked me up, but she hasn't listened to any of my experiences. For a year now she only believes Matt's manipulating side of the story. She can't and hasn't listened to me for even 5 minutes, so I have written her off as part of the plan organized by my stalkers, as far as I'm concerned. She was nice enough to give me a ride. But a true mom should be able to tell which son is really truthful and which one is fake. That's what I think. Either she isn't on it, has been professionally manipulated by many people, or they have mind control technologies aimed at her brain. Maybe all three. My phone, to this day, remains in that van at the Madera County Sheriff's Department. They won't give it back because the van and its contents are evidence in a criminal case. I just want an honest answer. Who are the real criminals in this matter? If justice is ever to come, then national security agencies will get burned to the ground. Fuck this whole country is how I feel about it. And fuck Paul Jones, he is no friend of mine. He never was a friend, just trouble. Paul is crazy, and that's why I liked hanging out with him. Crazy fuckers aren't fake, they are who they are, and it shows. I just never imagined he would stab me in the back the way that he did. Oh well, life goes on. That homeless chick, the next day. The next day, I went to my doctor. I arrived at 8:20 a.m. and sat across from these two peculiar little old ladies. They were peculiar because they seemed upper class and talked to each other with a very high level of vocabulary, which is rare by itself. Combine that with their wealthy appearance, and their whiteness, and you have a very peculiar couple of old ladies in the middle of the Central Valley. I've never seen anything like it. I swear to this day that they were Matt and Rob in disguise, true secret agents. They sat and talked for 15 minutes before they realized that the one that came to see the doctor had already seen the doctor, and they were surprised that they had been sitting there talking the whole time after seeing the doctor, and they giggled as they got up and left. They were gang stalkers for sure, and one was tall and skinny, the other not as tall and fat, just like Matt and Rob. and a few chairs to my right sat a woman and her 14-year-old son, Isaac. Isaac was new in my high school class and showed up 1 out of 3 days, and was also part of the stalking crew. Our national security was at stake here. I didn't realize that high school teachers were such terrorists, but I guess that's the world we live in. I know Isaac and his mom were part of the gang stalking crew. What really gave it away was I saw this other short, fat old ugly Mexican lady from across the room that I recognized from 4 months earlier in Rite Aid. There were people in the store that would yell at me from a distance, saying shit like, "Your daddy's crazy," and "I saw him on Craigslist," and many other rude annoying comments. I'm getting pretty good at figuring out who they are. I can go shopping and see people circling me with empty baskets, and I try to remember their faces, or take pictures of their face to remember them better. They hate when you photograph them. They usually get away as fast as they can. They even follow me through drive-thrus and get just a soda, while verbally harassing me the whole time. They access my electronics and harass me through my speakers when I'm alone. For example, me and my 2 kids were cleaning the kitchen one day and Amber had her iPhone playing a radio station. I remember clearly when it happened. It was immediately after both my kids ran down the hallway and into the back room to look up something on the internet. Just as soon as they rounded the hallway corner, the station morphed into a song sung by my brother Matt. The lyrics went, "Dave, you are a piece of shit," and similar verbal harassments. The song played and I couldn't believe my ears, but it was real. And then my brother started talking to me, saying, "Dave, I can talk to you through your stereo, your computer, your TV, we can even talk directly into your brain." After a minute of this, my kids were done with their search and were running back down the hallway to share their knowledge, and the moment they rounded the corner of the hallway, the iPhone's audio output morphed right back into the normal radio station. I have the idea that drones are monitoring the targeted victims as a monitoring safeguard, so the agents can never hijack a victim's electronics when other people are within reach of hearing the hijacked audio output. This ensures that not one person ever experiences the events that the target talks about. National security is a sneaky bunch of spies that selectively eliminates innocent people that are the greatest threat to national security, people like myself. But getting back to my stalkers, that one fat ugly Mexican was directly behind me in line at Rite Aid, and I remember turning around and seeing her smiling right at me. I thought to myself, she couldn't be one of them, she's just a local Mexican, and totally dismissed her as a possible perpetrator. But now, 4 months later in the doctor's office, there she was in the middle of it all, making eye contact with Isaac's mother and engaging in small talk, like they knew each other. After a while, the stalkers stick out like a sore thumb. National security even put kids in my classroom to help stalk me. What kind of shithole has America turned into? I am not a terrorist. At least, I wasn't until they stalked me for 20-some-odd years. I might consider myself to be one at this point in my life. Getting back to my story, after these 2 perpetrators got through chit-chatting, this young lady from way across the waiting room gets up and walks out the door and leaves. She had been sitting in the far corner of the room this whole time and I didn't notice her until I saw her just get up and leave for no apparent reason. As she walked by me and out the exit, I noticed that she was the homeless girl from the day before. Only this time she was in a business suit and had makeup on. It was her, there was no doubt. I laughed to myself about how ridiculous the whole thing was. I mean, does this kind of stuff really work on people? It made me laugh. What was their angle? As far as I can tell, they do this to convince the victim that everybody is conspiring against them. If they repeat this kind of nonsense in many scenarios, then the victim starts to think that everyone everywhere is in on it. I bet it works on some people, and after 23 years of being stalked, I have to admit, it becomes effective. About 15 minutes after that homeless business bitch left, they called me in to see my doctor. They switched doctors on me last time and I was to see the same doctor this day that they switched me to last time. He was a dead-on twin of the doctor on the cartoon series, The Simpsons. This new doctor of mine reminded me a lot of that cartoon character. They sent me to the same room as last time, too. Room number 13, all the way down the hall, past every other room, then turn right and a quick left to the only room not located in the main hall of rooms. Room number 13. It was the second time I had ever been in that room, and after 15 minutes of reviewing my 3-inch thick files, taped up on the edges with very noticeable red tape, the doctor questioned me about how my drug use has been, and whether or not I needed help. After convincing him I was okay, he listened to why I was there for 30 seconds, scribbled out the prescription, and then got back on course for his own reasons for being there. He said, "I'm going to go get an oxygen sensor test kit. I want to test your oxygen levels. Just in case." I replied, "Sure, doctor, I will wait right here." Not 1 minute had passed before I began smelling the stench in the room, like rotten cheese mixed with sewage. I immediately stood up and investigated the 3 different vents in the ceiling of the room. And sure enough, the stench was coming from one of the vents. As I sat there, the entire room filled up stronger and stronger with this gas that really scared the shit out of me for a moment. I thought to myself, they're gassing me in the doctor's office. I knew national security was stalking me, and at that moment I thought that they just might be poisoning me right in that room. So I did what I should have done. I stepped the hell out of that room. And I stood there in the hallway outside of room 13 with my hand on the doorknob, wondering what the hell I should do next. The hallway was empty. I thought, what am I going to say if somebody sees me? What's my next move? And I started to slowly walk down the hall, scrambling for what to do. I turned the corner into the main hall, and there was a nurse. I finally knew what to do and asked where the restroom was at. On my way to the restroom, I heard a few nurses asking what that horrible smell was, and they said maybe one of the doctors left out their lunch yesterday and it had rotted. I came out and saw the doctor go into the room, so I went in, too, feeling a bit more safe. I got out of there as soon as I could and have never returned. I will find a different doctor if I ever need one again. I probably won't. When I left there, everyone in the waiting room was talking about it and the whole place stank really bad. That doctor was trying to set me up as the cause of it. On that particular day, the gas came straight from the vent. I know because I experienced its buildup from the source of the vent. I smelt it out and know that national security has their own contacts within the system of doctors in probably every city across America. And cops as well. And criminals. And military. Probably judges as well, and every other facet of this godforsaken place. They own the programs you watch on TV as well, but again, I'm getting ahead of myself. I must paint my picture before I talk about what is really going on.